On the coldest Christmas night in Detroit, a desperate mother falls to her knees on the icy kitchen floor. Her children cry from hunger, the pantry is empty, and she collapses. "God, I failed them," she whispers through tears. Jobless, familyless, hopeless, she's sure God has turned his back on her. But at that very moment, something impossible happens. A man who has never walked down that street at that hour feels an inexplicable urge to turn back. He doesn't know why. He only knows he needs to. When he knocks on that door and sees her red eyes and the children clinging to her legs, he understands immediately. This is no coincidence. It's divine guidance. What begins as an act of compassion on a cold night transforms into something neither of them could have imagined. A story of faith, love, and the miracle of God. Sarah Mitchell was 32 years old, with brown hair always tied back in a tired ponytail, blue eyes that no longer shone as brightly as before, and hands calloused from so much work. She was one of those women you see and know instantly that life hasn't been kind to her, you know? But even so, she had that sweet way of looking at her children, as if they were the only thing that still made sense in her world. There were two children, Emma, 6 years old, very thin, with freckles on her nose and a shy demeanor that broke your heart, and Jake, 4, still with that round face of a little child, always holding on to his mother's skirt. They lived in a rented house on Detroit's east side, in a neighborhood where the streets were covered in dirty snow in winter, and the silence of the night had the weight of someone who knows the struggle firsthand. December 2019 had arrived like a final blow. Sarah had lost her job as a cashier at the supermarket 3 weeks earlier. They said they were cutting costs, that it wasn't anything personal. But when you have 2 small children and no savings in the bank, everything is personal, really. She tried to find another job, knocked on every door she could, filled out online applications late into the night. But nothing. It was Christmas Eve and she had exactly $12.60 in her wallet. The pantry was practically empty. There was half a box of pasta, a can of tomato sauce that had been open for days, and a few slices of bread that were starting to go stale. Nothing else. The refrigerator had some leftover milk that would run out tomorrow and an apple. That was it. The Christmas tree that the neighbors had given, a small, artificial, somewhat crooked one, was in the corner of the room with no presents underneath. Sarah had told the children that Santa Claus was late this year, that he would come later. Emma had believed her, but Sarah saw in the girl's eyes that little hint of doubt that hurt more than anything. That night, December 24th, the cold was brutal. All of Detroit seemed frozen, with that biting wind seeping in through every crack in the old house. Sarah had put the 2 coats she had on the children and bundled them up with extra blankets. But even so, you could hear their teeth chattering from time to time. "Mommy, my tummy hurts," Emma had whispered at dinner, if you could even call it dinner. Sarah had made the pasta with the leftover sauce and divided it into 3 tiny plates. It wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. Jake had eaten it all in 5 bites and looked at his empty plate with that confused expression of a child who doesn't understand why there isn't more. "I know, my love, I know," Sarah had replied, feeling her throat tighten. "We'll have more food tomorrow, I promise." But it was an empty promise. She didn't know how she was going to keep it. She had nothing left in the pantry, no money, nowhere to go. Her whole family was in North Carolina. It had been a terrible fight years ago, pride on both sides, and now she couldn't even think about calling for help. The children's father had disappeared when Jake was still a baby, and she never heard from him again. She was alone. Completely alone. After putting the children to bed, which took forever because they were hungry and restless, Sarah returned to the kitchen. The house was silent. Only the sound of the wind outside and the occasional creaking of old wood. She looked at the open pantry, at the empty shelves, and something inside simply broke. Sarah slid down to the cold linoleum floor, leaned her back against the cupboard, and covered her face with her hands. Tears came hard. The kind of crying you hold back for so long that when they finally come out, they all come out at once. Her shoulders trembled. Her breath came in muffled sobs because she didn't want the children to hear. "God," she whispered through her hands, her voice completely failing. "God, I failed them. I don't know what to do anymore." The words came out broken, desperate. I tried. I swear I tried so hard. But it's not enough. I'm not enough. She lifted her face to the kitchen ceiling, hot tears streaming down her cold cheeks. Please, please, show me a way. Any way. They're just children. They don't deserve to go through this. They didn't ask to be born like this, to have a mother who can't even feed them properly. The silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating. There was no answer, no sign, nothing. Just that cold, empty kitchen and the horrible feeling of falling into an endless abyss. Sarah had gone to church when she was younger, had learned about faith, about trusting in God, but at that moment, it felt like the sky was closed. It felt like God had turned his face away. It felt like she was screaming into the void. I can't take it anymore, she admitted quietly, only to herself. I don't know how to go on. It was true. Sarah Mitchell had hit rock bottom. She had no more emotional reserves, no more strength to pretend everything was all right, no more hope clinging to any part of her soul. Everything was dark. Everything was heavy. Everything was impossible. She lay there on the floor for how long? I couldn't even say. It could have been 10 minutes. It could have been an hour. The cold of the linoleum seeped into her clothes, but she barely felt it. She was numb, lost in that dark place where hopelessness dwells. And then, so suddenly that it made her jump in fright, there was a knock at the door. 3 firm, clear knocks echoed through the silent house. Sarah froze. It was almost 10 o'clock at night. Who would knock on her door at this hour on Christmas Eve? She quickly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, stood up unsteadily, her legs numb from being on the floor for so long, and walked slowly to the front door. Through the old curtain, he could see the silhouette of a man outside. Her heart raced. Detroit wasn't exactly the safest city in the world, and answering the door for a stranger at night was risky. But something, she couldn't explain what, made her unlock and open the door just a crack, keeping the security chain in place. The man on the other side was black, probably in his early 40s, wearing a thick winter coat and a navy blue wool hat. He had kind eyes, the kind that make you feel you can trust him, and he was holding 2 grocery bags in his hands. When he saw her face swollen from crying and heard the muffled sound of one of the children stirring inside, his expression changed instantly, from uncertainty to deep understanding. "Good evening, ma'am," he said in a calm, respectful voice. "My name is Marcus Wright. I know this might sound strange, but I was passing by and I heard someone crying." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I know it's none of my business, but is everything all right? Do you need any help?" Sarah stood there, her hand still on the doorknob, not knowing what to say. Part of her wanted to slam the door in his face and pretend everything was fine, to keep her pride intact, even if it meant nothing. But another part, the exhausted, broken, desperate part, simply didn't have the energy to lie anymore. She began, and again her voice faltered. The tears returned, hot and uncontrollable. I don't have anything to give my children to eat tomorrow." The words came out like a confession torn from her soul, and as soon as they were spoken, Sarah felt her legs weaken. She had admitted it aloud. She had let out the shame, the failure, the complete defeat. Marcus didn't hesitate for a second. "May I come in?" he asked gently. "Please, let me help." Sarah looked at the strange man on her balcony, clutching shopping bags on the chilly Christmas night, and something inside her, perhaps instinct, perhaps desperation, perhaps faith, made her remove the chain and open the door completely. Marcus entered slowly, respectfully, like someone who knows he's treading on sacred ground of someone's grief. He placed the bags on the small table in the living room, and Sarah saw that they were full of food: fresh bread, milk, eggs, fruit, meat, rice, canned beans, even cookies and chocolate. It was more food than she had seen in the last 3 weeks together. "I was coming back from my sister's house," Marcus explained, taking off his hat and running a hand through the gray hair at his temples. "I live on the other side of town. I never normally go down this street. But today I felt I had to come back this way. I have no idea why, I just felt it." He looked at her with those gentle eyes. "Then when I passed in front of your house and heard the crying, I understood." Sarah stood there, arms crossed, trembling, not just from the cold, but from pure emotion. "I can't accept this," she said, but her voice came out weak, without conviction. "I have no way to pay you." "I'm not asking for payment," Marcus interrupted her firmly, but gently. "And this isn't a loan, it's a gift, it's Christmas." He pointed to the bags. "This is for you, for the children." As if they had heard the cue, Emma appeared in the doorway of the little room, rubbing her eyes. "Mommy!" she called in a sleepy, frightened voice. "Who is it?" Sarah turned quickly, wiping her face. "It's okay, my love. Come back to bed." But Marcus had already crouched down to the girl's height, smiling in that warm way that makes children trust him. "Hi, little one. My name is Marcus. I brought some things for your Christmas." He looked at Sarah, silently asking for permission, and when she nodded, he continued. "Want to see?" Emma approached slowly, curious, and Jake appeared right behind her, clutching his tattered teddy bear. Marcus opened one of the bags and showed them the fruit, the cookies, the chocolate. The children's eyes widened as if by magic. "Can we eat?" Jake asked, looking at his mother with that hope mixed with fear of hearing no. Sarah felt a lump tighten in her throat so much that she could barely speak. "They can," she whispered. "Yes, they can." Marcus spent the next half hour helping to organize the food in the pantry and refrigerator. He insisted on making sandwiches for the children. "Christmas has to have a midnight snack," he said with a smile. And Sarah watched silently as Emma and Jake ate with that deep, heartbreaking hunger, but now with smiles on their faces. It was the first time in weeks that she had seen her children smile like that. After the children went back to bed, this time satisfied, warm, and happy, Marcus and Sarah stayed in the living room. He wasn't in a hurry to leave, and she, strangely, didn't want him to. There was something about his presence that calmed her, that brought peace. "Why did you do this?" she finally asked, her voice still hoarse from crying. "You don't even know me." Marcus was silent for a moment, looking at his own hands. "Because I've been where you are," he said softly. "About 12 years ago, I lost my job. My wife got sick. It was a very difficult time. We also had 2 young children, and I remember one night, similar to this one, when I didn't know how I was going to put food on the table the next day." He looked up at her, and then a stranger appeared, a guy from church I didn't even know well. He brought food, paid an overdue electricity bill, and told me something I'll never forget. "This isn't charity, it's an answer to prayer. God sent me here." Sarah felt the tears welling up again, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of despair, they were tears of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Relief, hope. "My wife recovered," Marcus continued. "I found a better job. Things improved. And since then, I try to stay alert, you know. I try to listen when God whispers that someone needs help." He smiled. And today he whispered very loudly. "I had just spoken to him," Sarah admitted, her voice trembling. "I was on the kitchen floor, thinking he wasn't listening, that he had abandoned me. And then you knocked on the door." "He never abandons us," Marcus said with the quiet certainty of someone who knows from experience. "Sometimes he waits until we reach our limit to show us that he was always there." Before leaving that night, Marcus gave him his phone number. "Call me if you need anything," he said. "And when things get better, maybe you could visit our church. It's a good place, full of good people. I think you'd like it." Sarah promised she would call, and this time it was a promise she intended to keep. The following days were transformative. Marcus returned the next day with his wife, Teresa, a beautiful woman with a wide smile and a tight hug, and their 2 teenage children. They brought more food, clothes their children had outgrown, and toys for Emma and Jake. But more than material things, they brought their presence. Friendship, genuine care. Teresa and Sarah connected instantly. They sat at the kitchen table having coffee while the children played. And Sarah found herself sharing things she hadn't told anyone in years. About her ex-husband who left, about the fight with her family, about how difficult it was raising the children alone. Teresa listened without judgment, held her hand during difficult times, and shared her own struggles as well. "We're not superheroes," Teresa said at one point. "We're just people who decided to trust that God is in control, even when it doesn't seem like he is." Marcus used his contacts to get Sarah job interviews. There were 3, and on the third, at a logistics company that needed an administrative assistant, she was hired. The salary wasn't high, but it was enough. It was a fresh start. The church Marcus and Teresa attended was a 20-minute drive from Sarah's house. The first time she visited, the Sunday after New Year's, she felt like she had come home. The pastor was an older man with white hair and a firm but gentle voice. That day's sermon was about how God works through ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Sarah cried throughout the entire service. Emma and Jake loved Sunday school. They made friends, started smiling more and playing more. Sarah saw her children regaining their lightness, that childlike way of not having to worry about anything other than being children. And Marcus remained present. He and Sarah developed a deep friendship. He helped her with practical things, fixing the leaky faucet, changing the flat tire on her old car, teaching Jake to ride a bicycle, but he was also there during the difficult times, when the ghost of insecurity returned, when Sarah doubted herself. He had that rare ability to make a person feel seen, valued, important. Months passed. Sarah progressed in her job, started saving some money, and paid off all her overdue bills. The pantry shelves were now always full. She became more involved in the church, began serving in the children's ministry, and made true friends. Life began to make sense again, and at some point, without her realizing exactly when, her friendship with Marcus began to transform into something more. It was the glances that lingered a little longer, the conversations that stretched into the late hours, the way her heart raced when he arrived. Marcus felt the same, she could tell, in the way he always found an excuse to show up, how he remembered the little details she mentioned, how he looked at her when he thought she wasn't looking. It was on a Saturday in April, during a barbecue at Teresa and Marcus's house, that it finally happened. The children were playing in the yard, Teresa was inside preparing dessert, and Marcus and Sarah were alone for a few minutes on the wooden deck. "Can I tell you something?" Marcus said, and there was nervousness in his voice, something Sarah had never seen before. "Of course," she replied, feeling her heart race. "I know we met in an unusual way," he began, looking at her with that gentle intensity. "And I know you've been through a lot, that you're still recovering. But Sarah, you're one of the strongest, bravest, most incredible women I've ever met. And I think I'm falling in love with you." Sarah felt the tears welling up again. It seemed she had cried more that year than in her entire life. But they were good tears. "Me too," she whispered. "I'm falling in love with you too." The kiss that followed was sweet, tender, full of promise. And when they parted, Marcus cupped her face in his hands and said, "I'll take care of you and the children, if you let me." And Sarah, who had spent so much time carrying everything alone, who had built walls around her heart for fear of being hurt again, finally allowed those walls to fall. "I want to let go," she said. "I trust you." Their relationship grew with the solidity of something built on a firm foundation. It wasn't haste, it wasn't crazy, impulsive passion. It was mature, intentional, conscious love. Marcus knew every corner of her story, every scar, every fear, and he didn't back down. Sarah knew his vulnerabilities, his past struggles, the moments when he too had doubted everything, and she loved him even more for it. Emma and Jake adored Marcus. He didn't try to force the role of father. He respected their timing, let the relationship flow naturally. But he was present. He taught Jake to play ball, helped Emma with her homework, showed up at school events, and made pancakes for breakfast when he stayed at their house on weekends. And the children, who had been without a father figure for so long, flourished with his attention and love. Teresa was the relationship's biggest supporter from the start. "I knew it," she told Sarah one morning over coffee. "That first Christmas night when Marcus came home and told me about you, I saw it in his eyes. I said, that woman is going to be important in your life. And look, I was right." The marriage proposal came 14 months after that Christmas Eve. Marcus organized everything with the help of Teresa and the children. It was on a February afternoon, at the church where they had first connected. He had said it was a special youth group meeting, and Sarah, who now helped with the teen ministry, had gone without suspecting a thing. When she entered the sanctuary, it was packed. Her family from North Carolina was there. Marcus had managed to find them, had called, had built bridges that Sarah thought impossible to rebuild. Her mother was crying, her brother was smiling, her aunt was waving enthusiastically. Her friends from church were all there, Emma and Jake in the front row, dressed up and with huge smiles. And at the center of it all, Marcus, in a suit, holding flowers, with that look that said everything she needed to know. "Sarah Mitchell," he said when she came near, his voice emotional but firm. "That Christmas night, God guided me to your door. I thought it was to bring food, to help for the night. But in reality, it was to find you. It was to find the woman I want by my side for the rest of my life." He knelt down, opened the small box containing the ring, nothing extravagant, but perfect, and asked, "Will you marry me? Will you build a family with me, Emma, and Jake, and make this story our story forever?" Sarah couldn't even respond properly with words. She just nodded, crying and laughing at the same time. And when he put the ring on her finger and pulled her into a hug, the entire sanctuary erupted in applause and shouts of joy. The wedding took place in June of that same year, in a simple but beautiful ceremony at the same church. Sarah wore a white lace dress that Teresa had helped her choose. Emma was the flower girl, and Jake carried the rings with his chest puffed out with pride. The pastor who had preached about miracles that first Sunday officiated the wedding. "What God has joined together in despair, He consecrates in hope," the pastor said during the ceremony. "This is a story of redemption, of how God transforms ashes into beauty, mourning into dance, despair into joy." And it was true. All of that was true. Life after the wedding was everything Sarah never knew she could have. Marcus legally adopted Emma and Jake. They were his at heart from the start. But now it was official on paper too. The house they had bought together in Dearborn was filled with laughter, family dinners, bedtime prayers, and love overflowing from every corner. Sarah advanced in her career, becoming an operations manager at a logistics company. Marcus opened his own auto repair shop, fulfilling a long-held dream. They were active in church, led a couples group, and helped other families going through difficulties, because they knew what it was like to be at rock bottom. But most importantly, most significantly, was the peace Sarah felt now. That peace that comes from knowing you're not alone, that you are loved, that your story had a happy ending not because you deserved it, but because God is good, because He sees, because He acts at the right time. Every year on Christmas Eve, the whole family, Marcus, Sarah, Emma, Jake, Teresa, and Marcus's children, gathered at that little table in the first house where it had all begun. Sarah had preserved the house, transforming it into a meeting place for family gatherings. And there, in that kitchen that had been the scene of her deepest despair, they celebrated. They ate together, laughed together, prayed together. And Sarah always told the story to the children, how I had been on the floor of that kitchen, thinking that God had turned His face away, thinking that all was lost. How Marcus had knocked on the door on an inexplicable impulse. How that night had changed everything. "Do you know what I've learned?" she would say, looking at the faces of the people she loved. "God never abandons us. Never. Even when it seems like He's not listening, even when the silence seems deafening, He's there, planning, preparing, sending the miracle at the right moment." Emma, who was now a teenager and helping with the church's children's ministry, would always add, "And sometimes the miracle comes in the form of people who obey the impulse to come back, to knock on the door, to care." Jake, who had grown up strong and kind like his stepfather, added, "That's why we always help others, right? Because we can be a miracle in someone's life." That was exactly it. They had become what had saved them. They were the answer to other people's prayers, just as Marcus had been the answer to Sarah's desperate prayer on that cold Christmas night. There were difficult times, of course. Life didn't become a perfect fairy tale just because they got married. There were occasional financial difficulties, challenges with the children during their adolescence, and moments when Sarah struggled with the old scars of abandonment and rejection. There were times when Marcus was overwhelmed trying to take care of everyone. Marriage is work, a daily construction, a constant choice. But they faced everything together, and they had built something solid, something real, something worth every difficulty. Because they had both learned that faith doesn't mean the absence of problems, it means God's presence in the problems. And love doesn't mean the absence of conflict, it means a commitment to resolving conflicts together. On a particularly significant Christmas, 5 years after their first meeting, Sarah and Marcus were alone on the porch of their new house, watching the Christmas lights twinkling on the street, listening to the sounds of children playing inside with their cousins. "Do you regret anything?" Marcus asked, holding her hand. Sarah was silent for a moment, thinking about everything she had experienced. The pain, the struggle, the profound despair of that Christmas night 5 years ago. And then she thought about everything she had gained. Not only Marcus and their family, but her own transformation, the strength she had discovered, the faith that had grown like a deep root in the fertile soil of hardship. "No," she replied confidently, "I wouldn't change a thing. Because if I changed anything, maybe we wouldn't have met, and I don't want to imagine my life without you." Marcus pulled her closer, kissed her forehead with that tenderness that was his trademark. "Me neither. You were the greatest gift God ever gave me. You and the children. We were a gift to each other," Sarah corrected gently. "God knew what he was doing when he brought us together, and it was true. It was profoundly, absolutely true." That Christmas night that had begun in despair had transformed into the beginning of the greatest blessing of their lives. The moment when Sarah thought she was furthest from God was precisely the moment when he was closest, preparing the miracle, moving the pieces, aligning everything. She had finally learned that God does not abandon, that he sees every tear, hears every prayer, knows every pain, and that he answers, not always in the way we expect, not always in the time we want, but always in the way that is best, always with love, always with purpose. On that Christmas Eve 5 years later, with the house full of family and love, with the children happy and healthy, with a husband who loved her with a love she didn't even know existed, Sarah Mitchell, now Sarah Wright, closed her eyes and whispered a prayer of gratitude. "Thank you, God," she whispered, just between herself and the Creator. "Thank you for not abandoning me on that cold ground. Thank you for sending Marcus. Thank you for transforming the ashes of my life into something beautiful. I trust in you. I will always trust." And that night, with the stars shining over Detroit and the sound of laughter filling the house, Sarah knew with absolute certainty that God had heard, and that he always hears. He has always been there, and he always will be. Sarah clearly understood what she couldn't see on that cold kitchen floor. God never abandoned her. He simply waited for the exact moment to send the miracle to the right person on the right night when she needed it most. What began as despair transformed into redemption. What seemed like the end was only the beginning, and the most important lesson. When we think God is silent, it's because he's working behind the scenes, preparing something much bigger than we could imagine. Faith doesn't eliminate the storms, but it guarantees you'll never face them alone. If this story touched you, leave a like, comment what you thought, and subscribe to keep hearing stories like this, like the one I'm sharing with you.